Hey coders, welcome to the channel. So today we are going to make a tic-tac-toe game in Java. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. So now let's make our tic-tac-toe game. So we have this main method, and to make the tic-tac-toe game, first we will need a variable that will hold the position of the board. So let's make a variable, and this variable will be of type string array, and let's name this variable board equals new string array, and it will contain 9 elements, each element for each block in the tic-tac-toe board. Since the tic-tac-toe board has 9 blocks, and each element will hold the position of one block in the tic-tac-toe board. So now what we will do, we will add elements to this board variable. So we will say board at the index 0, not minus 0, 0 equals uh, dash. So what this dash means, this dash means that that particular block is empty at the position. And so now let's make all the blocks on the board empty. So let's copy and paste it. So now we have our board from index 0 to 8 defined, and each block is empty initially. So now what do we need? We need to display this board to the user. So for that we will make a method. So let's say public static void and static void, and let's name the method show board. And what this method will take as an argument, it will take a string array argument, string, and which will be our board. So it will take our board, and now it will print our board as we desired. So it will print, first add a system.out.print statement, and what it will do, it will print the first 3 elements in the first 3 row. So to print them, let's add board at the index 0. So what this statement is doing, this statement is printing the first 3 elements of our board variable in the first line, and now it will have to print the other 2 lines also. So let's copy and paste this. So our method showboard method is complete, and it will print our board as we want it. So now after this the assignation of this board variable, we will call this showboard method, and let's pass our board variable here. And now let's run the code and see what happens. And it is showing us the board. All the 9 spots are empty by default. So after showing this board to the user, what we want user to enter some chance. So for that we will also make one more method. So we will say public static void, and let's name the method take chance. And what this method will take as an argument, this method first will take an argument string array argument board, and then it will take a string argument which will be the player. And what this player means, this player means that whose chance is it in the current position, it is the X chance or it's the O's chance. So now let's define a method, and so to take the chance from the user, it will have to import the scanner class. So let's say scanner sc is equals to new scanner, and let's pass system.in. and now let's take input from the user in let's say the variable is int, and let's name the variable chance equals sc dot next int. So it will ask a user to enter some chance, and now let's print a message for the user. So let's say system.out.print, and let's pass here enter numbers from 1 to 9. So it is asking the user to enter numbers from 1 to 9, and here the user will enter the number. So now what we will do, we will check that the number that the user has entered is from 1 to 9, or if the user has entered a number which is greater than 9 or smaller than 1. So we will check if chance is greater than 0 and chance is smaller than 10. In that case only it will execute the code ahead. and let's add a else statement for this, and this else statement is for if the user has entered a number which is greater than 9 and or smaller than 1. So in that case what we will do, we will again ask the user to enter the chance, and for that we will again call this method referencing it from itself. So let's call this method take chance and let's pass board comma player. So if the player has entered a wrong number, then in that case it will again ask the user to enter the chance. And after we have checked for the numbers smaller than 1 and greater than 9, then what we will do, we will check for the number that the user has entered, is it empty in the board variable. So we will check if board at the index chance -1. So we are adding -1 here because the user are entering number from 1 to 9 and this index takes numbers from 0 to 8, so we will have to add -1. And let's say equal dash means if that place in the board is empty, then only it will get ahead. And let's also add a else statement for this if condition also, and else if a user has entered the number which is not empty in the board at the current position, so what it will do, it will again ask the user to enter the chance. So let's copy and paste this statement here, and it will again ask the user to enter the chance. And now let's get ahead writing of a function. So if that particular position is empty, then what we will do, we will change the board variable. So we will say board at the index chance -1 equals player. So what this is doing, this is changing the board according to whose chance is it and who has entered this chance when it is asking to make input from the user. So it will change this board variable and it will add x to that position. And now our this take chance method is completed. So now let's call this take chance method here. So let's say take chance and let's parse board comma player, and we haven't defined this player string yet, so let's define this. And let's say string player equals, and let's say it's x first, and after a player had made their chance we will change this player string. So we will say if player equals x, then we will change the chance to O, means if it was the chance of x, then now it's the chance of O, and if it was chance of O, then now it will be chance of x. So in this way it works. So let's add this player equals. So after a player had made their chance, it will change the chance, and if it's a chance for x, then it will make the chance of O, and if the chance is O, then it will make the chance of x. So now let's run let's run our code. What we will do, we will add a loop here. So let's say while true, and it's an infinity loop. So let's remove these brackets from here and let's add after these conditions and our code. So what this will do, this will repeat these actions again and again in an infinite loop. So you will understand that what it is for later. So for now let's run the code, and it asks me to enter number from 1 to 9. So let's say 1, and it places x at the first position, and now it's the chance of O, so it must place O in whatever the number I will enter. So let's say 2, and it places O at the second position of the board, so our code is working. So now what we will have to do, we will, after a player had made their chance, we will have to check two things. We will have to check that if it is a draw or if a player has won. So let's make methods for them. So let's minimize this method. So first let's make a method for draw. So let's take public static, it will not be void, it will be boolean. If it will be a draw, then it will return true, and if it will be not a draw, then it will return false. So let's name this method check draw, and this will take board our board. And now let's define our method. How can we check that it's a draw? It's a draw in a tic-tac-toe board, but there is no available spot available for a player. So let's iterate over this board variable. So let's say for string I in our board, and let's add a condition here. If I equals this means during our iteration, if we got an empty spot, then what we will do? We will return false, means the game is still going on and it is not a draw, so we will return false. And after all the positions of the board has been iterated, then after that we will return true, means there is no empty spot available in this board. So in this way our check draw method will work. So after making chance, let's call this check draw method. So let's say check draw and let's pass our board, and since it is returning true or false, so we will add a if condition, if check draw. So in that case what we will do, we will print, so system.out.print, we will say match drawn, and after that we will quit out of the Java code. So we will say system.exit and int stack to 0. So what this will do, if the match is drawn, then it will print match drawn and it will quit out of the code, and if the match is not drawn, then it will do anything. So now we have made the method for check draw. So now let's try out this method. So let's run the code, and now let's quickly try to fill up this board. And this board is filled up and it shows match drawn, and it is not showing us the last position of the board. So it's because we are not showing the board before we are printing this match drawn. So I will call show board method here, and let's pass this board here. So what it will do, before printing this match drawn and exiting, it will show us the board. So now let's make our check win method. So let's say public static, and this will be void, and let's name this method check win, and this will take our board first, and this will be a board, and this is the only argument that it will take. So now you just follow the whatever I'm writing here. So what this statement is doing, it is adding these x and o to this string array, and this string array's length is 2, and it is containing these two strings x and o. So now let me write more code and you will understand that what it means in some time. So you can just follow me. So we are iterating over these x and o. So in the first iteration, the value of this piece variable will be x, and in the second iteration its value will be this o string. So now what we will check, we will check that it's a win for a player in a tic-tac-toe board if the first, second and the third positions are occupied by a particular player, or the fourth, fifth and the second player, and these horizontal, vertical and these slanting lines are filled up by a particular player, then it's a win for that player. So we can check that in code. So let's add a statement, if board at the index 0. So what this is doing, it is checking that if the first position and the second position and the third position in the board is filled up by a particular player, which will be x and o in different iterations. So we are adding piece here. So if it is true, then it's a win for that player. So we will say if it's a win, then we will say system.out.print, and we will say piece plus 1. So what this is doing, this if this piece is x, then it will say x1, and if this piece in an iteration will be o, then it will say o1, and after that we will quit out of the code. So let's say system.exit and let's add integer status 0. So If a player wins, then it will print that player, whatever the player is, and after that one, and then it will exit out of the code. And let's add one more statement here. Before printing this piece 1, we will have to show the board. So let's call the show board method, and let's pass the board here. So this is only one condition if the player has won, and there are 8 different positions in which a player can win. So let me add all those positions. So these are all the conditions. So the first condition is the first position, and the second position and the third position is occupied by a player, and the second condition is if the fourth, fifth and sixth is occupied by a player, and then the seventh, eighth and ninth are occupied by a player. And these are the lines, x-axis lines, and now these are the y-axis lines. So if the first and the second, not the second, the fourth and the seventh position are occupied by a player, then it's a win, and all these statements are in the same format. So now our check win method is also complete. So now let's call this method and minimize it, and after checking the draw we will call the check win method, and let's pass board here. So now our game is complete. So let's run this code, and now let's try to make x win. So let's say 1 for here and here, and now it's a win for x in the third position. So let's say 3, and it says x1. So means our check win method is working and our game is ready. So in this way our tic-tac-toe game works in Java. If you find today's video helpful, then don't forget to like the video, and to get this kind of interesting content regularly, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching the video.